All right, so we're going to talk about Whiskey's leash work. So in this section, we're going to talk about her heel. We're going to talk about what to do if she's pulling. We're then going to talk about long leash walks as well as a recall, and then we'll go into engagement. So when we talk about a heel is her walking by my side, right next to me, matching my pace, which she's kind of a slow walker, but she's focused on me. She's not allowed to sniff. She's not allowed to pull or check anything out. She has a job, and that job is to focus on me. This is a short-term walk. This is not what you're going to do around the block. This is what you're going to do if you're in a crowded area, you're in a store, you're in a place where there's lots of distractions, or there's another dog coming to you. I will put my dogs on a heel and will walk past a biker, and then I'll release them and they can go on a loose leash walk where they can sniff around and check it out. And then if another distraction's coming, I'll put them back in a heel. So my expectation for a heel is that Whiskey is walking right next to me. She's checking in with me, but she's focused on walking. We're not sniffing, we're not pulling, we're not checking things out. It is a strict, focused walk. So she has a job to do. Because this is a heavily focused walk, she's got to be focused on what's going on. I am going to give her a lot of feedback, whether that's noises like, hey, something as simple as that, or Whiskey, oh, okay, good girl, but I'm going to give her a lot of feedback and I'm going to reward her quite a bit. So anytime that you're going to need to do the heel, which is probably on every walk, make sure you have food on you. Even my adult dogs, if I want a really good heel, they'll do it without food, but they are much more focused and I can do it longer with a food reward. Of course, my dogs are e-collar conditioned, so I can use it with that and they'll be phenomenal. But especially with a puppy, or if you're not going to e-collar conditioner, make sure that you have some type of reward on you so that you can keep her focus on you. Okay? So, Whiskey, I'm going to get her up real quick. So when I tell her to heel, you'll notice her position. You'll notice that this is a 4-foot leash, and I'm going to give her roughly about 1.5 feet. I go down to where my hand hits my side. I pinch the leash there, and then I loop it. So this way, if she started to bolt, instead of me getting dragged down, I can let go of the leash. But also, I have the ability to give her quick feedback. She doesn't ever get further away from me. Because if she hits the end of this leash, now she's got some running space, she's going to yank you around. So I want to be able to give her quick instructions. So I'll just tell her, heel. Good girl, good girl, good girl. Notice I'm giving her feedback. She's walking right next to me and wondering why in the world we're doing the heel inside this morning, which we'll get a video of this outside too. Good dog. Good girl. Notice that she's focusing up on me and that she's walking polite. She does have a very slow pace. Now, my expectation is when I stop, I expect her to sit down. That should be an automatic behavior. If she's a little distracted, you might have to ask for that. If she's really distracted, I might step in front of her. But once again, when I'm on this heel, she has a job to do. She's not allowed to pull. She's got to be focused on me. Now, what to do if she starts to pull? My first thing, right as soon as she puts any tension in that leash, whether we're sitting here and she starts to sniff to the side, or whether she's full on pulling towards another dog or a person, immediate correction. Do not hesitate. No, pop, pop. Okay? If she ignores that, I will repeat my correction one time. No, pop, pop, and I'll pop her again. If that does not work, she is clearly focused on whatever's going on, I'm not going to continue to do that, nor am I going to let her continue to drag me down the street. She's going to be a giant dog, and so you have to be really strict and consistent with this now if you want a dog that's not. No? See that? Just that simple. So yeah, you've got to be consistent if you want this to set in and you don't want to be dragged down the street. No. So it's not that harsh of a correction, it's just no, and I give her a little tap on the leash. Now, if I was standing here talking to somebody, I don't want her to sit here and pace around, right? So in this case, if she's distracted, I'm going to ask her for a sit. And if this was going to be a little longer term, like we are having a conversation, I might actually tell her to stay. So if your correction doesn't work, you've offered it twice, you gave her 2 pops, she's still just focused on whatever it may be, a squirrel, a person, a biker, I don't know. If she continued to try and pull, obviously that's not working. We are going to adjust ourselves so that we train to success, not to failure. I am not going to let her progress if she is pulling. So if she doesn't listen to that correction, I will then say, no, let's go, and I'm going to walk away. So by turning and walking away, I'm putting myself in a position where I can regain her attention. Once she focuses on me, I'll reward her a couple times. Okay, you're in control, let's walk back. If we start going back and she tries to do it again, no, and we turn around. Now when I do this, I quicken my pace. I am going to force Whiskey that she has to pay attention to me. I don't want to drag her around, but I will give her a couple good little corrections so that she understands, like, oh, I've got to walk next to him if I don't want to get corrected. Now, the other thing that I'll do here, which I kind of went out of order, so after a correction, if that doesn't work, I am going to make sure that I completely stop. Once again, there is no forward progression if she is pulling. If I come to a complete stop, I correct her, and she doesn't put that slack back in the leash, doesn't focus on me, then I will turn around. And I'm also going to quicken my pace at this point, once again. So that's what to do if she's pulling. So even, like right now, you can see there's slack, she's not pulling, but if she continues to want to walk over to her crate because she wants to go take a nap, I'm not going to let it. So no. And it's just that quick little correction. Now she put her attention on me. Good girl. Good girl. That's what I want, so I'm going to reward it. Whatever you reinforce will get replicated. Her pulling, if she pulls and gets to the distraction that she's after, that is reinforcing that behavior. If she only gets to that distraction by being in control, you're reinforcing the behavior of not pulling. No? And so simple corrections, which I know you're done with me. Huh? It's okay. It's okay. And the other thing to understand is on these walks, Whiskey has a very short attention span. And so you've got to be kind of sensitive to that. You can't go into a heel for the next 5 minutes. Like, it needs to be short bursts, and then once I'm ready, I'll tell her, okay, break, and now she's able to go. Break means that you can go and sniff, you can check things out, whichever. So, girl. Okay, so we're going to talk about Whiskey's recall. Her recall is the come command. So this is the command to get her to come back to me or to check in when we're out on walks, we're outside, any of that. Now, Whiskey has a great recall for us. This is something that you are going to have to build up with her because obviously a new relationship. So when you're doing this, you're going to do it a lot on your long lead walks. You're going to practice way more than you need to use it, and you're going to keep it very exciting. So when I call Whiskey, it's just, Whiskey, come. Good girl, good girl. Notice I say her name first. That's to get her attention, and then I deliver the come command. If she is not paying attention to me, if she's got her head down a hole, just yelling at her to come is just shouting into the void, and all it does is get you frustrated. So I'm not going to ask her to come until I have her attention. Now, also, if she fails, for the first little while, you should have her on this long lead so you can tell her no, and then reel her in. Good girl, good girl. You'll notice when I reel her in, I put that initial tension. I'm not yanking her, but I'm just putting a little bit of pressure, and she's going to start walking towards me. The moment that she turns and starts walking towards me, I'm going to tell her, good girl, give her that feedback, and then reward her when she gets here. And when I actually call her to come, it's, Whiskey, come! And if she, no, good girl, good girl. Notice that she tried to, well, she was kind of evaluating whether she wanted to come or not because I've been keeping her here. I said no, I gave her that initial tension, and she brought it back. Whiskey, come. Good girl, okay, good girl. So just like that. She does have a very short attention span, like we mentioned, and a very slow pace. So you've got to be patient with her. That's why I give her that encouragement. Whiskey, come. Good girl, okay, good girl. So as simple as that. When you call her to come, you always have to follow through. She never gets an option to ignore you, even if she's off leash. if I didn't have a hold of this leash and I called her to come and she ignored me, didn't quite touch it. So if she ignored me, I'm then going to go and get her. So it would be no, and then I'd start walking. Good girl. Now, as soon as she started to walk towards me, I'm going to reward that behavior. I am never going to punish my dog for the act of coming to me. Whiskey, come. Good girl, good girl. Good girl, huh? Yes. Now, if you had her off leash, you called her, she ignored you, you started walking, and she thought, I'm gonna run the other direction. I'm never gonna chase after her. I am gonna walk slowly and go and get her. Once again, if she comes to me, even if it's the last 5 feet, I'm gonna reward that behavior. The other thing you can do, depending on what mood she's in, if she seems like she's in a playful mood, she's like, you wanna come and get me? I'll play a little bit of reverse psychology, and I'll turn that game into, instead of me chasing you, how about you chase me? And so it looks like, come here. So I'm gonna turn her around. Good girl. Is I'll be like, Whiskey, come on, girl, Whiskey, come here. Oh, that's a good girl, good girl, good girl. See how likely she is to come after you? And so it's just playing kind of her own cards against her. So practice that recall a lot. Don't let her get away with ignoring you. The other thing is if you're inside, just use like a kissy noise or come here or something like that, because in those instances you have control. She can't open any of these doors. I can always go and get her. So I'll whiskey, 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 whiskey. Good girl. And she's going to come over to me. Good girl. Okay. So lots of feedback. Practice the come command a lot. Do not let her off leash in an environment where she could get into trouble for at least the next month. You've got to build that relationship with her. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. But look forward to getting Whiskey to you and in your home. We sure have loved training her. She's super sweet. Just a very sweet dog. So thanks again. And let me know if you have any questions.
So right now we are walking Whiskey in a heel, and even though I have my 4-foot leash, I'm only using about a foot of space for her. So this means Whiskey's job while in a heel is for her to stay at my side. While in a heel, we're not sniffing, we're not wandering, we're not going to the bathroom. Her job is to stay with me. Good girl. If I stop walking, I expect her to sit. If she does not, I will ask her to. Good girl. Heel. You notice that she is keeping the leash in a loose J, and I'm going to use leash pressure to tell her where I want her to go. So if I'm going to stop and I want her to sit, I'm going to use a little pressure up to tell her, hey, I want you to stop and sit. Good girl. If I want to turn to the left, I'm going to pull a little bit back so she doesn't walk into my shin. Good girl. And if I'm going to go to the right, use that pressure. Good. And guide her along. Hey, so Whiskey is not allowed to pull no matter how long the leash is. So we have a couple different methods of dealing with that depending on what she is doing. If she's a little distracted, which she is a little bit right now, I'm not really going to correct her, but instead it's, hey, to get her attention. Good girl. So that's if she's just a little bit distracted. So now pulling. The first time she pulls, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to do 2 pops on the leash. Up. To get her attention back. So no, pop, pop. When she puts the slack back into the leash, I will reward her with a good girl and a treat. I will do this 2 times before that method is not working. If she is still pulling after that, here, come on, let's go. It's not an effective way of communicating with her. So instead, my next line of defense is to stop walking completely. We're not going to go forward until Whiskey is seated and under control. Good girl. okay? I will continue walking forward. And at this point, if she still continues to pull, I am going to say no, and I'm gonna pull a 180 and walk the opposite direction. So nope. I'm gonna walk pretty fast. Wait till she's under control, and then I'll walk back. If she starts pulling again, then I will immediately turn around and walk the opposite direction. Good girl. Good. So this sends a very clear message that if you want to pull somewhere, you're not going to get there. That is very, very important, that Whiskey does not get to go anywhere by pulling. Good. You'll also notice that I'm rewarding her quite a bit. So a heel is it's an intermediate level activity, especially for a puppy this small. So I'm gonna continue to reward her for walking well. I'm giving her a lot of feedback, whether that's, hey, pay attention to me, I need you to sit, you're doing a good job. Lots and lots of feedback is required on a heel, both consequences, the good and the bad. Good, Whiskey. When you first bring her home, you're going to basically jackpot reward her whenever you guys go on a heel. The amount of rewarding will lessen as she adjusts to you, but these first couple of walks go really, really heavy on the treat. Good, Whiskey. All right, that is our heel.